While the war begins to move to the territory of Russian Terroristic Federation, we start a new news release about war in Ukraine on Yakovlev Twins channel. China helps arm Russia. Russia receives helicopters, science and military spare parts from China. Also, according to the Wall Street Journal, China could help the Russian Terroristic Federation to build fortifications in Ukraine with engineering and construction equipment. In the first 7 months of 2023, trade volumes between those two countries grew by 36% to $134 billion. And among the deliveries, there is equipment that can have a dual purpose and be used to military purposes. But at the same time, there is some interesting information. China approved new maps of the country with part of the territory of Russia. There is that part of Russia, which Russia validly seized at one moment from China and attributed to itself. Now China writes this territory on the maps as its own, with original Chinese names. Yeah, really interesting relation between those countries, yeah? Next, the White House claims that Russia and North Korea have intensified negotiations on military cooperation, including the supply of weapons to the Russian Terroristic Federation for using against Ukraine. And this actually shows that the Russian occupiers are desperately looking for an opportunity to continue the war. As the Guardian publication reports, during a joint press conference with the leader of Portugal, Polish President Andrzej Duda said that Russia continues to transfer nuclear weapons to Belarus. Meanwhile, according to information from some sources, Russian troops began arriving to Belarus again. They came to participate in joint exercises with the emergency response forces, which will take place in Belarus from September 1st to 6th. And this is actually already the second echelon of the Russian military that arrived in Belarus for this purpose. At the same time, other sources say that Russia withdrew all its ground troops from Belarus and transferred them to the Kupiansk and Liman direction at the east of Ukraine. So I guess for now we just can monitor the situation with Belarus. East of Ukraine, where the hottest battles are taking place now. The Russians concentrated about 110,000 troops in the Kupiansk and Liman directions. According to the New York Times, in response to this, General Syrsky ordered additional units of the armed forces of Ukraine to be transferred to the direction, despite the recommendations of Western partners. Currently, according to Reuters publication, the armed forces of Ukraine have already broken through the most difficult line of Russian defense in the south of Ukraine, and now will be able to advance faster. Ukrainian forces are now working to widen the gaps in this line to create a hole large enough for Western-provided armor to break through, and of course given sufficient logistical support. The breakthrough of armed forces of Ukraine in Verbove village will open the way to currently occupied Bryansk and Mariupol cities, and the advance to the south from Robotyne town will allow the return of Tokmak city. Also, Bild publication reports that the fighters of the armed forces of Ukraine have broken through the fortifications of the Surovikin line in the Zaporizhia direction. Surovikin actually is a former commander-in-chief on Russia. And now our defenders are approaching the village of Verbove. And those dragon teeth actually held back the Ukrainian soldiers for only about a day. During August, our defenders in the southern direction won back more than 45 square kilometers. The Drive source shared information that Ukrainian missiles will be able to reach Moscow. Ukraine is modernizing Neptune missiles. Those Neptune missiles that actually draw the largest Russian military cruiser called Moscow. Ukraine has developed a targeting system that searches for and locks onto a target based on a preloaded image and then launches an attack. The radio-electronic warfare ceases to be effective against such missiles. And now we can talk about that main Directorate of Intelligence of Ukraine finally transfers the war to the territory of Mordor. I mean Russia, of course. Starting from August 24, something interesting is happening at nights on Russia. Something is constantly blowing up. And this is real fear and hatred inside Russia. The armed forces of Ukraine can strike 1,500 kilometers deep into Russia. And this said Alexei Danilov, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council. And this became possible thanks to two Ukraine's own projects: the missile program and the program for the use of drones. And actually, the New York Times confirms that Ukraine is developing about 5-6 models of drones with a flight range of more than 1,000 kilometers. Since the beginning of the year, drones have attacked the territory of terroristic Russia and the temporarily occupied Crimea more than 200 times. And for example, the strikes on the night of August 13 in 6 regions of the Russian Federation became the largest in 2023. Ukraine destroyed or damaged at least 24 Russian aircrafts on the territory of Russia, Belarus, or territory of Crimea. Russian terrorists even periodically make the carpet regime in Moscow airports and completely delay departure and arrival flights. Also, Zelensky confirmed that Ukrainian long-range weapons hit the targets at the distance of 700 kilometers. So, what actually happened? On August 30, drones massively attacked several regions of Russia and Crimea. Raids were carried out in Bryansk, Kaluga, Moscow, Oryol, Pskov, Ryazan regions of Russia, and Sevastopol city in Crimea. The Pskov airport, which is actually 700 kilometers from Ukrainian border, was attacked. The distance is so significant that the Russians were hysterical that they were being attacked by NATO from Latvia. The attack on Pskov was prolonged, explosions rang out, flames were visible. According to official data, 2 military transport aircraft of Russia, Il-76, were damaged. Then, the Russian plant in Bryansk, which produces parts for the air defense system Pantsir and the missile systems Iskander, were attacked also. It is one of the largest manufacturers of microelectronics in the Russian aggressor country. Then, in the Kaluga region, a drone fell into an oil tank, and the governor confirmed this. In the Bryansk region, 2 drones hit the Transnafta oil depot, which is part of the infrastructure of the Druzhba oil pipeline. The drone crashed over the territory of Ruzh district of the Moscow region, and drones were also shot down over the Ryazan and Oryol regions, and in all those cases, nothing is yet known about the consequences or the destructions. Well, actually, this night, August 30, showed that the intensity and success of Ukrainian intelligence attacks will only increase. Ukraine is beginning to successfully use the Israel strategy and destroy the enemy from the inside, delivering striking blows where they are not expected, namely at key rare facilities that ensure the combat capability of the Russian army in Ukraine. In addition to the direct military significance of those strikes, they have a huge psychological significance. For the world, it's clearly shown the weakness of the invincible Russians. And for deep Russian people, Russian population on Russia, it's like February 24 of 2022 is coming. Such terrible day for Ukrainians. And now Russians can also feel it. This was the last main news for today for recent few weeks. Thank you for staying with us, for your support. Glory to Ukraine, to our defenders and partners. See you next time.